Woo!
Hello, everybody. Hey.
Happy
Wednesday.
Yep.
This is the last Wednesday in May.
It is. You know what that means?
Season finale.
Y'all, this has been such an extraordinary season.
Yeah.
This is the second.
This has been an extraordinary experience in totality.
I ain't gonna lie.
I mean,
I've
the
learned
Black
so
is
much.
Brilliant speaker series itself.
So welcome.
Such an unexpected delve, digging into the brilliance, the magic, the majesty, the nuts and bolts, the pragmatism, the legacy, the legacy and the excellence of the Black teaching tradition, of Black education in New Orleans, of Black education in America.
Yeah, because I mean, here's the thing: we've learned so much this season, but in reality, the
No.
So we in this season we have carried forward the conversation that we were having last season with some extraordinary educators here in New Orleans about some of the cultural institutions that have, brought forth so many brilliant minds like you. We talked to the Dren, the founder or the founding executive director of BNOLA.
Yeah.
And I mean, it has been absolutely extraordinary having these conversations and carrying them into this season, expanding, because what we realized last season was that there were so many things that make the Black teaching tradition a part of the American teaching tradition that we realized, like, let's expand, let's bring forward some other educators, some people who are involved in education and in uplifting Black children and the excellence of Black children nationally. And so we're going to keep on doing that.
I think we have the perfect guests to have this conversation around what it means to preserve, protect the legacy of Black education, of the Black teaching tradition. But before we bring in our season finale guest, let's bring in the fearless leader of Black education for New Orleans, my dear sister of so many years from our days at the Learning Workshop under the care of Mama Oretha. My dear sister, Adrinda Kelly.
Hey.
Y'all look so good. Can y'all believe we are already at the series finale? This is wild.
This season. It's not the series finale.
We're going to keep this thing going. You know that there's going to be more that
but they also say the time flies when you're having fun.
When you're having fun.
And we've been having a really good time with some.
We have definitely been learning. You know our work very well. I know some folks who are watching this may not know as much as you do. And so I'll say that one of the biggest sort of treats for me over the past 6 months as we kind of have had these conversations about, the Black teaching tradition and particular strategies and characteristics that hold it up is I've learned so much, number one, and it's really just sort of reinvigorated, my passion for the work that BNOLA does, which is all about unleashing the capacity of Black educators in New Orleans to do their thing on behalf of Black children. And so we've gotten to be a student over the past 6 months around these, we've called them 5 characteristics of quality Black education, these pillars, right? That uphold, Black education at its best. And, tonight with this season finale, we have some heavy hitters talking about the pillar of legacy and cultural retention, in the Black teaching tradition. How do we remember? How do we transmit over generations the things that are important and critical, for us? And so I'm really excited about our 2 guests. I'm going to briefly introduce them. Curator, author, historian Kathy Hambrick is someone that Stevie and I adore. Shout out to Stevie, by the way. She's traveling right now. Otherwise, she would be here with us.
Yeah, so we'll pause just to let you know, if anybody wants to get in touch with
Yeah.
Adrenda or Stevie, please do so. The leadership team from Binola is extremely accessible, and they want to collaborate with everybody who is interested in uplifting Black education. So please make sure you do your part.
And can we just say those pictures are so cute, you know? But anyway, let me start by introducing Miss Kathy. So we work with Kathy Hambrick at least once a year when we bring a group of Black is Brilliant Institute teacher fellows to the Amistad Research Center, where they get into the archives to learn and study and expand their own understanding of Black education history in New Orleans. And so Miss Kathy Hambrick, as I said, curator, author, historian, currently serving as the executive director of the Amistad Research Center, a dear partner to us. Also, very, very importantly, the founder of the first African-American museum in Louisiana, which is the River Road. Let me tell you. And if to say River Road, you're talking about Black people and their resistance. And so, you know, Kathy and our other guests tonight, Dr. Starsky, are, you know, they're beyond the 300-word bios. But I know I speak for the whole family at Binola when we say thank you for being here, and we're excited to get to learn from you today. Our second guest is the Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, who serves as president and CEO of the Children's Defense Fund. Now, let's say that again. President and CEO of the Children's Defense Fund.
Pew, 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 pew.
You literally cannot talk about Black education in this country without talking about CDF, without talking about the legacy of the Freedom Schools and the impact that all of that work has had on our community. He also serves as the board chair for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation and Duke University's Divinity School. He is also has led boards of the National Committee for Responsive Philanthropy and Forum for Theological Exploration. Dr. Wilson, you are a new friend to Binola. We are excited to meet you and so excited, you know, to get to learn from your conversation tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the Blairisms and start taking some notes.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
We will see you soon. And I have to say, you know, Dr. Wilson, you are a new friend to Binola, but we are old buddies.
Indeed.
We go back a few decades. Now, I'm not going to date age us too bad, but we go back to our days at in the classrooms and walking the halls of Xavier University under the tutelage of a woman named by Dr. Pamela Waldron Moore, who we can't let this moment pass, especially talking about legacy and cultural retention and Black education, without honoring the work that Dr. Pamela Waldron Moore did at Xavier University over the course of the last 2 decades for political science and for the study of the social sciences at Xavier University. Bravo, thank you, Dr. Moore, for your legacy and for bringing us together.
Yeah, indeed.
So let's take a second to kind of ground ourselves in the conversation, right? As Dren mentioned, we're talking about legacy and cultural retention. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the digital syllabus by Binola, please make sure you do that. It is available on their site. But when we're talking about cultural retention, we're talking about the practice of preserving and passing down key cultural elements and traditions over time, ensuring that important cultural knowledge and practices remain intact across generations. So I want to start this conversation with you, Dr. Wilson, because you are at the head of a organization that was founded by an extraordinary leader. And I'm curious to kind of,
especially this idea of legacy.
Exactly, right? Kind of have this conversation about legacy and what are some of the cultures that you have retained in carrying forth the legacy of Marian Wright Edelman and leading the Children's Defense Fund?
Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity to be here and to engage around this topic. I'm now 4.5 years into following a leader who planted an institution and led it for 45 years. I tell people, number one, I'll be the new guy for another 5 years. And number two, the question of how well we're doing won't be answered for some time. But I think what we've seen as the work is first and foremost helping to honor and retell the story. We continue to roll back. Even today, I'm here in Minneapolis at the National Conference for Community Schools and Family Engagement. And we told the story of the 1974 report, Children Out of School in America, curated by Marian Wright Edelman, Mary Lee Allen, people like Hillary Clinton, knocking on doors in community before there was a Department of Education, as a way of reminding people of what the situation was before, what we need to be fighting for in this moment, and what our responsibilities are to roll up our sleeves to get beyond the privileges of this moment. So part of the work is storytelling, reminding people of those stories of origin, but also helping people to discern, especially when you carry a legacy as large as the one that Marian Wright Edelman has led, or large as these institutions like CDF, NAACP, and others, helping people to own their place in the work. That we've now got to discern values, the core and the essence of what Marian carried among us as she now enjoys a well-deserved retirement. How do we carry those values? How do we discern the essence of them? How might we now need to articulate them since we don't see them walking around the office? So I think that's part of the work, the storytelling, the sharing of the legacy and the work with others, not trying to walk in it singularly or individually, and then helping people to discern the essence or the core of what that legacy is so that we might continue to share it with others.
Word.
No, that's a word. That's a word.
I think storytelling is so important. And as we hand it over to Kathy to kind of talk about the importance of legacy and storytelling in this whole context.
And Amistad is such an important institution to that, to the preservation, the retention, the transmitting of history from generation to generation.
Right. And in this time, Jesus Lord.
Yeah. So Kathy, please.
Well, first of all, I want to say it's very nice to meet you, Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson. I have an uncle in my family who I called Uncle Reverend Peters because I wanted to make sure respectfully I addressed him according to the way I was taught to do so in my family. I also want to say that I have not had an opportunity to meet Marian Wright Edelman, but she is one of the people that is on my list in my lifetime that I'd love to be able to just say hello to and say, I love you, and to say thank you. Please send this to her and say, I truly, truly believe that freedom schools could save our community. And I know this for a fact because as the founder of the River Road African American Museum, I think it was back in 2009, we received a grant. I think it was about $69,000 for a 5-week freedom school in the rural community of Donaldsonville. Wow. And I wrote the grant. It was through then the freedom schools in Louisiana were being funded through the Department of Health and Hospitals. They had 21 freedom schools in Louisiana. New Orleans had 8. My first experience with Freedom School was at a Freedom School that was held at one of the churches down near where the Desire Projects used to be. From there, I went to, I think there were about 6 Freedom Schools in Baton Rouge. And I was one of the first Freedom Schools that was in the rural river parishes. So I had an experience of taking the young people who were hired to Clinton, Tennessee. So I've been there. I participated in that training with those young people who were hired to come back and operate our Freedom School. So I know there were 50 children from that rural community with parents, even the women and men who volunteered to fix the lunches
Hmm.
and to be a part of that morning activity of songs and learning and just, my goodness, the teaching, that curriculum, and that enthusiasm and that power that you speak into those children through your program could save the world. Put it this way, our world could save our world if every church in America had a freedom school supported by volunteers of parents, grandparents, and young people. I will tell you, we would not see as much crime. We would raise the next generation of people who would love each other and understand the struggle of the women and men like Blair's grandmother and aunts and uncles.
My God.
No,
My God.
No, that's a word, and I think
Yeah.
that
is,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really kind of speaks to what Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson was saying about the importance of storytelling, and I think that to what you were saying about the work of the Amistad Research Center in telling these stories and making sure that they're preserved, but also that there are other museums and other institutions that are founded and run by Black people that are in control of and own our stories. That, I mean,
Yes.
that's the work.
Yeah, that is the work. You know, we're in a time where legacy is in jeopardy.
Yeah.
And not that it's a new jeopardy, it's an accelerated jeopardy, right? It's not that it's not always been in jeopardy, right? There's, you know, I've often said throughout this series that Black education itself is an act of resistance.
Yes.
Itself is an act of revolution. And so, you know, retaining the traditions of the Black teaching tradition, this is not a new attack. This is just an accelerated onslaught, right? What are we to do though in this moment of accelerated attack? What are the marching orders for those who are watching, especially given the positions that your organizations play in protecting our community and the culture?
Kathy, please.
Yeah, Kathy, please.
Well, I want to say it's more critical and more crucial than ever that we form collaborations and partnerships with organizations like BNOLA. So BNOLA comes to the Amistad, they bring the teachers, we lay out the red carpet for them. We are now waiting um, for funding from a local foundation, not a government entity, a local foundation, where we will be working with BNOLA to do a junior archivist program. So we want to partner with BNOLA, and we have some technical advisors who look like us, who understand and are not afraid of AI. They understand digital humanities. We will engage students from the New Orleans community, 6th through 12th graders, to learn how to become junior archivists and use primary source documents. Now, it just so happens that when we put the grant in, we didn't talk a lot about like Black history and civil rights. We just said we're training junior archivists. It just so happens the material that they will be learning from, the primary source documents, are all about us and the African diaspora and the local and national communities of Black people from which they were born.
Pew,
Hey,
pew. I love
hey,
that.
I
See,
love that.
I love that, being subversive and still, yeah, working with what you got.
That's right.
Yeah, I want to lean into something that Kathy said early, which is this idea that they are waiting, as are we, like Children's Defense Fund, BNOLA, Homicide Center. We're all waiting to hear about a funding proposal from some source that is not the people that we are directly serving, supporting, championing, or advocating for. So I say all that to speak like a preacher. We can't find freedom on Pharaoh's payroll. And I want to argue that the first thing we need to be doing in our marching orders is funding and supporting, directly investing in Black-led institutions that carry our legacy. Because I know from my own experience in the Black church made me, raised me, saved me, educated me, that the only institution we fully politicized across the nation has been the church. And that's because it's the only institution we fully funded. And so in as much as we want to hold our legacy, I encourage people, it doesn't have to be CDF. I raise money for CDF all the time, but we need to find a way in our radical commitments to engage in radical philanthropy in support of the Homicide Center, to support in radical philanthropy in support of BNOLA, to engage in radical philanthropy in support of CDF and other Black-led institutions, because these will be the places that carry and hold our legacy long term. They will be the institutions that we have. Now, the other piece is we have to figure out how to reclaim the traditions. I turn attention to the work of Yale Divinity School scholar Dr. Almeda Wright, who it's like she heard Mrs. Edelman, Kathy. Mrs. Edelman used to say every Sunday school ought to be a freedom school. And so what she did was she began to study radical activist religious educators. There's a book she released last year called Teaching to Live, where she looked at the educational pedagogy of James Lawson, the educational pedagogy of Nannie Helen Burroughs, the educational pedagogy of W.E.B. Du Bois, seeing them all as either driven by religion or engaging in religiosity. But more than anything else, they were teaching people how to survive. Right. And they were using the best of our radical traditions to do it. So I think, yes, we have to support our institutions, but we can also look at these models and see which ones fit best for us to engage in radical pedagogy where we are, whether we have educational credentials or not. This is the work of culturally responsive education, and it's not just for people with educational credentials. It's for what we do in our community, work of the griots in our community.
Yeah, no, I think that what's so important there is that this isn't just for the people who have been identified as educators, right? This is for everybody. This is for the Sunday school, the teachers, the barbershop, right? This is for
absolutely.
This is for everybody.
That's right.
To engage in, because we all know and value the importance of education, right? We know that we need it, and no matter what you do. And so here it is.
Yeah.
But that too, I want to say is what I see as a part of the problem that we have to find a solution for. Do we as a whole still value education?
No, that's a real question. I think a lot of people in this day and age in America struggle with anti-intellectualism.
Yes.
And this idea, and also cognitive dissonance, right? The struggle with what they believe and the factual nature of the reality that exists around them, right? Like I think a lot of people are in this fear, right? It's this fear of confronting, what they know, what they believe, what they love, what they've held dear for so long. I mean, as we're talking about cultural retention, right? A part of what we are experiencing is this
culture, the legacy of white supremacy in America.
Tension, right? I mean, the culture of white supremacy being retained, and the education that we need in order to kind of undo its impact across cultures, right? Because it's not that it just has an impact on just Black education.
I mean, because what we're talking about really is the legacy of liberation, trying to live inside of the legacy of colonialism. I mean, that's what really what we're talking about. We're talking about protecting and preserving the movement of resistance against the status quo that exists around us, right? So there's which has its own legacy and culture and cultural retentions and cultural ideals and all of those things, right? It's in a lot of ways. You mentioned Du Bois. You know, this we're struggling with double consciousness still in lots of ways.
Yeah, and you're right, and it happens in a larger context. So when you talk about anti-intellectualism, you're also talking about decredentialization. So folks telling folks that they don't have to go to school because you can get this tech degree, you can learn this by AI, you can. So it's a wider global challenge, and it's why, frankly, we've got to recenter education as a liberative act in and of itself, not as an act toward advancing in the context of capitalism. I say this as a Gen Xer. That part of the challenge was that I was sold as a Black Gen Xer something that people believe to be true, which is you educate yourself, you get an education, you defer gratification, and you work hard, and you can do better than your parents. And I'm the last generation that was true for American history. Like millennials are more educated than Gen Xers, and they will not do as well because they don't because we have allowed, and I say we meaning my generation, we have allowed at the same time oppressive acts that are consistent with the expressions of white supremacy to undermine collectivism and unions, to accumulate wealth and stockpile that in the context of a few. And only a liberative education that allows for the kind of analysis of systems, a tracking of globalization, an assessment, like a well-rounded education would allow an analysis of that. And that's the kind of education we're fighting. We're fighting it at HBCUs. We're fighting it at what some call elite institutions in Ivy League, and we're fighting it by dismantling the Department of Education so there's no oversight or accountability. So this is, again, our chief act. Like the citizen educator is the liberating prophet in this moment. And we have to center that education is about that liberation. It's not about capitalism. It's not about individual social mobility. Because if nothing else, if it was about that, it's failed. So let's take it back to liberation and freedom.
So we also too, one of my favorite books was The Miseducation of the Negro. I say the problem today is the miseducation of America.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's not just about the miseducation of the Negro.
Right.
We are living in an era now where there has been continuous miseducation of America. So we're dealing with ignorance, just pure D, as they say, ignorance. My grandmother might call some of the people running government now ignoramuses. That's an old time word that y'all might not know.
Oh no, I'm familiar with the ignoramus. Ignorami, what's the plural?
But we also, we want to think about too, defining education. Education, there's formal education, but there's education. Do our children even know? There's education where you learn how to read a book, but then are you able to comprehend what you're reading? We all grew up going to school where we had an English class and a literature class where we learned the difference between fact and fiction. I don't know if people know the difference between reading something or seeing something that's presented to them. Is this fact or fiction? How do you do research, which is what we learn as you go to college? You're supposed to learn how to do research and to make decisions for yourself based upon the research about what is the truth or not. But I think the part of the problem is media has confused people. I don't even know if they care whether it's fact or fiction. They just go with whatever
feels most right.
Makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Makes them feel good.
Truthiness, right?
And that's where Reverend Dr. Starsky, your job in the ministry becomes so difficult. You know, for teaching, I say truth be told from the stacks of the Amistad. You have to learn how to do research. Look at primary source documents. Look at what is on paper, more importantly now than ever, because so much can be altered in technology that is not presented to you on a screen as a truth. What I'm speaking now can be altered. What is typed in a transcription from what we say today that ends up in the archives here at Amistad can be researched 100 years from now as what was actually said and transcribed and not altered by technology.
I think that's a really important thing to kind of grapple with as we're moving into this new era of education. We're in this new era of education and technology. And I think, we've talked earlier in the season about rigorous sight and about how important it is to really kind of keep your eyes on the prize and then also do your research and get to know what the problem is. Reverend Dr. Starsky, as a reverend and a doctor, I'm sure you had a lot of education and studied a lot.
A lot of letters. I hear Sister Kathy behind your name. I'm sorry. There's
a lot of letters in front and behind your name.
Well, somebody once told me that as Black folks, we got to have our papers in order.
That's the thing. So I was going to ask you,
gotta have your papers in order.
What are some of the techniques that you used? Some of the resources that helped you get your papers in order, keep your papers in order, and kind of giving you the kind of drive and motivation to pursue your education?
Yeah, so a couple of things for me. From a technique standpoint, I'll say, number one, I went to an HBCU, Xavier University. And so when we talk about cultural retention, we also recognize that there's something in the communal gathering, the communal space, places we choose to be educated. I learned more from the legacy, the whispers and the rumors about the leadership journey of Dr. Norman C. Francis than I learned in the first 10 leadership books I ever read, right? So there's something about the places we choose to be. And the communities that gather around us that teach us much. And from a technical standpoint, I didn't know that my mother taking me out of my Black church I grew up in, the Black family I was in, the Black newspaper that I grew up reading, into New Orleans, a predominantly Black city with a Black mayor, onto a Black college campus. She was engaging in cultural retention by taking me from one Black institution to the next, preserving me in one, going to the next. So that's one. The other, in the formal environments, I remember particularly when I was doing my Master of Divinity work, I went to a predominantly white seminary out of the main line. And one of the things I came up with early was that every time I looked at the syllabus, I researched. What seminary taught me is who to read. I love the Lord, I love the church, but I read horrible sources. And so I decided I would look at the syllabus at the beginning of every class. I would look at the publishers of the books in the syllabus and look for a Black scholar to go with it. And so I read a Black scholar for every class, whether it was on the syllabus or not. And I read one from a good published source. And then once I learned I could do two things. Number one, I could write a master's thesis. I didn't have to, but I wanted to study something Black because I had to go lead Black people. That I decided I would write a master's thesis so that I could study Black things, Black culture, Black space. And then I created for myself a Black church studies directed study with the longest serving Black professor there in the seminary, so that I would have dedicated time with this Black leader Dr. Enoch Oglesby, one-on-one, pouring into me before I left. And so I think these are the kind of things, right? We choose spaces, we honor leaders, we honor the institutions as a technique. And we, within white spaces, white dominated spaces, we need to make sure we carve out space to build the relationships and to learn from the scholarship of those who have served our tradition. Because the reality is, at the end of the day, I know integration is a whole thing, and I lead people with varying backgrounds, and I've got to come back to my community. And so that commitment in mind, those have been some of the techniques that I've named, that I've noted. And then on the perseverance front, it's just a commitment that it can't be questioned. I finished my doctoral work in 2019. Mrs. Edelman came out of day-to-day leadership of CDF, where I was already volunteering. I was supporting freedom schools in my community. I was engaging in religious organizing. And when I came to talk to her about her transition, we talked and discerned for over a year with one another. She was testing and checking me out. She spent all the right time doing that. But then I remember when I finished, she had asked me at one point, and I'm telling too many secrets here. She had asked me at one point to send her my resume, background, all that kind of stuff. She knew me, but she said send it. She wanted to see the papers.
Right.
And then when I finished my doctoral work, she said, now you need to revise it and send it back to me. Right. There was something about even leadership among us, not that she was putting this test to me, but she knew that we assess us vis-a-vis what institutions we go to as well. So that top 10 Duke degree mattered as well. And so that navigation, because of the world I've got to navigate, the ability to navigate large institutions, including elite institutions, was also a part of the educational journey. That was part of my why. Why do it? I tell people sometimes, I tell my son, my 20-year-old son, he's a rising junior at Howard. I said, look, man, I got my Xavier degree, which means something to Black people. I got my Eden Theological Seminary degree, which means something to the mainline church. I pastored in the mainline church. I got a Duke Divinity School degree, which means something to everybody. So there's something about that credentialing for us that seems to still matter.
I mean, what you described, I got a message, is that rigorous sight in action. I mean, just listening to you describe assessing the syllabus and the reading and finding companion material to make sure that you were getting what you needed to get while you were there. I mean, that's brilliant.
Absolutely. And I think what's also important about that is that it's also honest. I mean, because as we mentioned, we're working within a context of a society that clearly does not always value our brilliance, whether or not we got PhDs or we just brilliant, period, point blank, right? And I think that having your papers in order and having the wherewithal to say, no, I can give it to y'all on every level, what you want to play with me, is a part of the brilliance of Blackness and the ways in which we have navigated these systems that, we know what they do.
That really want our brilliance, don't want us. They want our brilliance, they just don't want us.
So, I wanted to say, in thinking about legacy and the topic, of education, and I think about my upbringing. I was born here in New Orleans, but then I was a part of a migration to Los Angeles. After Emmett Till, I had 3 older brothers. And it is evident now that my family and I talk about, well, why did Daddy leave? Why did we leave and go to Southern California? Why did we leave then? I was 3 years old. My brothers were teenagers after Emmett Till. And it is evident, I don't think we look close enough at this migration of families with Black boys after Emmett Till. I'm getting them out of here. I grew up there in Southern California, worked for IBM, graduated from California State University, Long Beach. I was a follower of the Pan-African movement. I wasn't a member, but I kind of hung out with the Pan-Africanists. I kind of hung out with those people studying Stokely Carmichael, getting to know Dick Gregory, trying to understand the civil rights movement from the perspective of SNCC and the Black Panther Party.
Yep.
But I came back to Louisiana, inherited a funeral home. And by reading the obituaries at the funeral home, I realized how much history was in these obituaries about my community that I was not taught at the university.
Mm-hmm.
I am an advocate for teaching children history from the local perspective.
Yep.
And I say that the best place to learn about Black history is at home.
Yeah.
How do you know your uncle didn't march on Canal Boulevard?
Right.
How do you know that your grandfather wasn't one of the first persons to register to vote in the county or the parish where they came from? Your family took you to California, took you to New York, and never wanted to talk about the South again. Yeah. So we left so much of our history behind, and a lot of that history is a part of what we preserve at the Amistad. Because your papers, your family papers, from your church, from the school, from the NEA, the National Education Association, the Black Teachers Association, whether it's ACOA, the American Committee on Africa, whether it's the NAACP, the Urban League organizations, yearbooks, the holdings at the Amistad. This is Black history. The public is welcome to come. You don't have to be a scholar, a professor, a writer, a journalist. Anybody can make an appointment to come. We are facing a 40% decrease in our federal funding. We are facing layoffs here at the Amistad, but our doors will remain open. I guarantee you that. And one of the things that I did in the past 30 days, Blair, as you know, I'm tired of talking about it. I come from that generation, you got to be about it, right?
Yep.
So we purchased the domain name SaveBlackHistory.org. Plain and simple. Yeah. If you want to help $1 at a time, in the spirit of benevolent society organizations, in the spirit of the Black church, $1 at a time, let's save this institution that preserves Black history and which holds the truth to be told about the triumphs, not just the tribulations, not just the hard times, but let's tell the stories of triumph. I say that we are the ascendants, not the descendants. We will rise up $1 at a time. Before there was government cheese, we knew how to make butter.
That's a word.
And I want to say that we need to come together, and our organizations need to continue to do this work. Dr. Wilson and Blair, I want to say that the work we do is not for ourselves. The work that we do is for the children. It should be for the next generation.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. I mean, that's the legacy that we hope to leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for us. The goal is to at least find some way to support the ascension, right? The next generation.
This is the time where if there are any questions from anyone in the audience who are watching for either of our guests, please go ahead and put them in the chat while I ask both of our guests to give us, we talked about some of the techniques. Bay likes to ask, what are some resources that folks who are listening can, what are your top, what do you send people to read to understand more fully how we got here, all of the things? I mean, Kathy, you mentioned the miseducation of the Negro. We talked about the souls of Black folks. I brought up double consciousness. What are some of your other resources Please, Kathy, please.
Well, I would like to encourage the listeners to go to the Amistad's website, amistadresearchcenter.org. You can read through the website and then go to the finding aid and type in any subject that might come to mind, just anything. You want to know something about, I'm going to put it this way. We have a collection on hip hop and bounce.
How
You wouldn't think the Amistad Research Center would have a hip hop and bounce collection. You can go and hear the interviews and oral histories of Manny Fresh and many of the hip hop and bounce artists of that generation. In the same light, just staying on the subject of entertainment, we have the world's largest Black opera collection. Now, people would say, Black opera?
Yeah.
And, I mean, I might have said back in the day at some point, Marian Anderson, Leontine Price, the only two I knew.
Yeah.
In your generation, in your generation, who are the Black opera singers of today? Who have they been over the course of history? We have a Black opera collection. So you can type in any subject matter and just play there. Learn what's in our collection. And then if you decide, you can come and we will curate a special exhibit for you in our reading room. I'm saying come and have an intimate experience with history at the Amistad. We provide the information that is the content for museums, Black and white, worldwide. You have an artifact, you need to do some research on that artifact. We are the ones where curators have to research to write that content, and also for documentarians, film producers, news reporters, dissertation and thesis students. We are a resource for education.
Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, I can't beat that with a bat.
Right.
I'm
in my little library.
Bookmarking. I'm sitting here bookmarking. So I want to definitely do that. As far as some of the kind of our classics, I encourage people to read, and it's more thinkers. So you talk about Du Bois, we talk about Carter G. Woodson. For me, this question of legacy is grounded in a question from Howard Thurman. What does it mean to die a good death? Right. It is a question of legacy from Howard Thurman. I commend people to read Jesus and the Disinherited. Not necessarily as a historical resource, but as one that helps to ground the spirit of moral suasion that is a part of the Black social gospel tradition that we know in King and Du Bois and others. That there's something about what it means to be and to understand God as a people with their backs against. So I encourage people to that text as a resource for understanding kind of the moral grounding for our commitments to justice and liberation. We have on our website at childrensdefense.org a history of the scholarship around freedom schools, because this is not something we started, frankly. We teach at Alex Haley Farm about the journey from Sabbath schools to freedom schools. So I encourage people to learn about these approaches to liberative education. So I've mentioned before Dr. Almeda Wright, Teaching to Live, as a resource for people. I'm also encouraging people right now to look at the scholarship from Kimberly Jenkins Robinson on a federal right to a quality education. Because I think part of the moment right now calls for us to be thoughtful about what human dignity calls for, and what are the things that ground our sense of deservedness. What do Black humans deserve because they are here? And I think Black children deserve a quality education. And so while people are fighting over the Department of Education, I'm saying my children deserve a quality education, and I believe the federal government owes them that. Even though people can't kind of find they can't find the political path to that. It's time for us to have a moral conversation about it. So Kimberly Jenkins Robinson has an edited volume around the case for a federal right to a quality education that I encourage people to go to in this moment. And I think finding resources that are related to the things that you are interested in. I have a son who's an artist, which means I got to learn about art. So I make sure they're cataloged. I didn't grow up with art, right? But in my home, in every room, there is a book cataloging Black artists, Kehinde Wiley, and he's learning about Jacob Lawrence. And I bought him signed posters from Terrence Osborne, who went to Xavier with me. And he's into Basquiat. So like, he's an artist. He needs to learn Black artists. So I think that's it. Like, how do I get to my areas of interest and stay in them? And that's part of what I'm trying to explore. Is trying to invite people to resources around their interests.
I love that. I can give you a full list. Black artists, and just art in general is like one of my things. I love it. Absolutely. I think one other resource that I'm just going to throw out there for everybody, we mentioned it on the front end, it is the digital syllabus from BNOLA. If you have not had a chance to check it out, it is an extraordinary resource and has so much context and additional resources that you can check out to further your knowledge and further your understanding of this conversation and the real kind of scope of what it means to carry on the Black teaching tradition.
And if you have not seen any of the other episodes of this season of this Black is Brilliant speaker series or last season, all of them can be found on BNOLA's YouTube page. There is a playlist that has all of the episodes of these specific seasons of the Black is Brilliant speaker series. Please check them out. I want to take this time to thank all of the guests from this season who joined us. We had some extraordinary conversations throughout this season, each month since January. I can't believe we are already at the end of May. I still remember the conversation I had with Dr. Wilson as we were planning this. I think we had that conversation in February or March.
Right.
And here we are. And we are done. And so, we don't have any questions from the audience tonight, but I do want to thank you both again, not only for joining us tonight and for sharing your brilliance, but even more importantly, for the work that you have done, are doing, and will do for those who can't do it for themselves, right? I mean, the work that you are doing, like we were talking about, is for the children. And for those who are on the margins and aren't able to protect themselves and aren't able to advocate and fight for themselves. And so thank you both for standing in the gaps in so many ways, in so many in ways and in places that we can't imagine. Thank you so much for what it is that you do and what it is you will continue to do. You inspire us and you inspire all of us by your work.
Yeah. Thank you for carrying on the legacy.
Carrying on the legacies. Yeah. Thank you so much. Before we let you go, what would you each like to leave with the people tonight?
Ladies first, of course.
I have a question for Dr. Wilson, Reverend Wilson. How many freedom schools are there in the country today? How many are in Louisiana? Where do we go to find out about starting a freedom school? And I want to say that I look forward to coming back to Alex Haley's farm in Clinton, Tennessee, just to hear them sing Something Inside So Strong.
Yeah. I
mean, that to watch those children and the way you develop that curriculum, and I'm gonna tell you, it was life-changing for me. And I will continue to pray, and I will donate. and whatever I can do to promote CDF, I'm going to tell you the everybody needs to know about the Children's Defense Fund.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And you've given me another stop on my trip to New Orleans. I know I'll be back for the centennial in November, and I always look for excuses to come back sooner. So I got to come back, make my appointment at the homicide, and spend some time. I'm grateful for that. I do want to answer your question. So there are this summer we will host Freedom Schools in 200 sites across 30 states, 127 cities, I think. And we'll serve about 14,000 young scholars. And we'll do that by training some 1,300 college students as servant leader interns. We'll be doing that training actually next week. I'll be on the farm next week with these college students from all across the country. And so we look forward to doing that. And we need to rebuild back in Louisiana. I think I only know of one Freedom School now. At one point in the era that you were talking about, that was the post-Katrina response. CDF helped to rebuild and create these opportunities for young people in partnership with the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. And at one point, we had more Freedom Schools in Louisiana than any other state across the country.
That's right.
And we don't have that now. And that's something that takes the kind of partnerships that you talk about with our organization together, but also with funders and with government. That was part of that legacy as well. And so we've got work to do in that regard. And that's part of my own kind of passion with New Orleans being one of my sites of formation. So really wanting that to be the case. So we look forward to that. Consider yourself always invited. Let's be very clear about this to Alex Haley Farm. So we make that open invitation. Join whenever you desire with us. And it is a place, it is, you know, Ms. Edelman talked about it when she put out a cry to the nation in March of 1994 when she was acquiring the farm, to say that this place was to be our folk school for life. It is a place of legacy, my addition, where we would come and exercise the behaviors that we wanted to see in our community. It's the home, what was then called the Black Community Crusade for Children. It was always about the next generation, and now generations since we've been doing that work. We can continue to say that it is here as I sign off every single email, every letter. It is here for our children. And so this is the work. Those three words situate the concept of legacy. They situate it in the context of the work we've got to do from a political standpoint as it relates to cultural retention, which is we got to discern what's to be retained. We must jettison.
Yep.
Yes.
We must jettison.
That honors the fact that we have syncretized a little too much.
Yeah.
We've taken in elements of the culture. We have proclaimed it from pulpits. We have taken other people's theology. We have challenged and gotten rid of some of our own cultural traditions. And so cultural retention requires the political act of discerning and learning what's ours so that we know what we should pass on to our children. So I think that's the watchword of legacy for us as well. But we do it all for our children.
Amen.
I love interviewing clergymen because we are always, anytime we are interviewing or have a conversation with a pastor or a reverend,
I love you when you're wrapping up with a good word.
You're going to get a word. You're going to get a collection plate worthy word.
Yes.
Kathy Starsky, Dren, Stevie, B. Nola, all of our guests, Ron McClain and the Institute of Mental Hygiene that allowed and made all of this work possible, all of these conversations possible, all of this connection possible. I'm so excited for what we already have done and what it will yield. And I'm so excited for the possibilities that lie ahead in the future based on what we already have done and what we and the corralling of brilliance that this series has done, both with the virtual conversations, with the community partners that are going to be hosting on the ground study groups
here in Louisiana. If you want to learn more about them, hit us up.
Yeah, and I can't help but think or feel as we are closing out this season that we are just getting started.
Absolutely.
So thank you both so much. Thank you all who have tuned in to these conversations. Thank you for spending your last Wednesday of the month with us for these last few months. We have enjoyed it so very much. Has given us an opportunity to learn, to share, to be blessed with beautiful Black brilliance repeatedly. And these conversations, as I mentioned, will live in perpetuity. They're going to outlive all of us. Yep. On Dinola's YouTube channel. Absolutely. And so 100 years from now, people will be listening to the brilliance of these folks, and hopefully they will be looking at it with the problems that we face today already solved. Yeah. Thank y'all so much. We love y'all so much. Everybody be well, and we'll see y'all very soon. Peace.